ما موفق شدیم خانم آزیتا برار رو داشته باشیم. ایشون به طور مجازی یا به طور ویرچوال از قاهره به ما ملحق میشن. خانم برار آواد مدیر بخش سیاستگذاری اشتغال سازمان بین‌المللی کار یا ILO هستند از سال 2006 تا 2017 و با تمرکز بر کاهش شکاف‌های اشتغال در ایران. امروز ایشون در مورد پر کردن شکاف‌های اشتغالی در ایران با ما صحبت میکنن. خواهش میکنم.
با درود به همگی شرکت کنندگان، امیدوارم که تصویر و صدای منو خوب میشنوین و I am going to switch now to English and try to share the few slides that I have. So again, good morning to everyone and greetings to those who are attending online. I'm Azita Berar, and I would like to thank the organizers of this meeting, not only for inviting me to attend and contribute to this discussion, but also for having put ILO standards on the agenda of the discussion. So I will be talking about bridging the employment gap in Iran with full respect for ILO standards. And I am bringing to this discussion some 35 years of experience and association with ILO, with International Labor Organization, as director of various departments, but in particular of the Employment Policy Department, where I have engaged with quite a number of policymakers over the years across regions in the global north, in the global south, for thinking about and developing policies in all kinds of critical contexts of development. And in addressing the same issues in the context of Iran, I want to start by making initial remarks how I see or how I would like to frame the issues and the discussion. I think that it is clear from the discussions of yesterday that we are all concerned that Iran is performing below potential. Iran, whichever way we want to identify Iran as an upper middle income country with vast resources of oil and gas, and especially a very large population and a very highly educated labor force. The second question that I think we are all asking ourselves, especially when we come from a global and comparative perspective, is Iran really an exceptional case? And I would like to answer by saying yes and no. No, because Iran has been struggling with the same issues, characteristics of labor markets, employment gaps, quality of employment that we see in many other countries with similar conditions. But yes, it's an exceptional case because the sanctions impact is unique or exceptional to the case of Iran. And let us not underestimate the impact of sanctions on all layers and levels of policy and institutions, including the impact on very many livelihoods and human rights. I think that there are a number of excellent studies done by Iranian economists inside Iran, outside Iran, as well as by UN institutions, in particular UN human rights institutions, on the impact on the really distorting the economy and distorting the functioning of labor market institutions. The other point that I want to make, and I think we are all concerned and we are all aware of it, but we keep forgetting that society has been changing and is changing constantly. So the past is not the future. We really need to look into the future with an open mind for not repeating the past, but coming up with new ideas and innovation for rebuilding Iran. Last point, that policies and institutions matter in delivering on the potential, but also policies and institutions have been evolving, and they are evolving constantly. So we are not really going to work on a white page or ground zero, but we really need to anchor our discussion in the actual current realities of the Iranian society and Iranian economy. I would like you to take two takeaways from my talk this morning. One is that investment does not automatically translate into decent employment. There needs to be preparatory planning and attention put on employment policy for investment to really translate into jobs and good quality jobs. And therefore, rebuilding with a strong social contract embedded in the investment strategy is a must. And part of that strong social contract is compliance with ILO standards, law, and practice. I would really also like to mention that there are critical factors that affect employment and livelihoods. And Iran now is at a critical juncture of convergence of multiple crises. We have discussed this yesterday and this morning. We don't want to need to go. So I will just read macro indicators: inflation, energy crisis, climate change, water scarcity, fluctuating exchange rates. Poverty increase, including among the middle class. This hasn't been the case in Iran for a long time. Iran has made significant strides in poverty reduction, but over the last years, this trend has been reversed. We know that there is a high level of migration, human resources, and labor flight, which is a direct response to lack of quality jobs, among other things. We know also that there is a limited fiscal space, and what matters also for employment creation is whether the sanctions will be enforced stronger or softer. And if we look at the previous episodes, these matter a lot for the levels of employment in Iran. We also know the very volatile context that we are in. It is more than geopolitics. It's really Iran is between the two extremes currently of a prospect of war or a deal. And finally, when we're talking about investment and trust, most of the discussions have been concentrated on FDI and direct investment, and that's very important. But we also need to talk about rule of law, about trust for unleashing the private sector investment inside Iran. Finally, these are a series of interconnected, complex outcomes that affect the employment and labor markets functioning. And whether if they start working in a downward spiral, they increase, exacerbate each other. But if there is improvement in any of these indicators that I have mentioned, it really soon becomes a virtuous cycle of going up. I will not flood you with lots of charts and figures and numbers, but I want just to share with you what are the current key characteristics of labor markets in Iran. We are seeing a very low labor force participation. This was mentioned yesterday. Men 42%, women 18%. This is low. This is low compared to a global average of countries in the similar conditions. It's low compared to the region. It is low even if we compare it with previous episodes of Iranian economy and labor market functioning. We have high levels of unemployment and underemployment, and any of these indicators that I am mentioning for you is in particular, I would like to add in particular women. So we know that we have to give credit to the heavy investment that has been made by Iranian government and institutions on education, including women's education at all levels, up to tertiary. But when they are coming out of this education circuit, they are facing a very high barrage of lack of access or discrimination in decent to opportunities for access to job and decent employment. The previous speaker in the morning, Mr. Farzaneghan, talked already about the youth bulge and whether that's a dividend. I would like to consider that this is a dividend and then not a curse. But we have a youth bulge with high aspirations and high levels of wage reservation facing joblessness. We have a prevalence of temporary contracts. 70 to 80% of formal contracts, labor contracts in Iran, are temporary, and these are permanent contracts for permanent employees. There is a significant increase in incidence of informal economy, including home-based economy and including e-commerce. And finally, we have had a gradual decline in agricultural activities and in manufacturing employment, and a predominance, a majority of service sector activities. So main challenge that emerges from the list of labor market indicators that I've mentioned is a very limited quality job creation dynamic in Iran, which is creating deficits in levels and quality of employment, but also which is creating a lot of frustrations, a lot of unmet aspirations. This bad news, all indicators, by the way, these indicators and with details are available at the Iranian Statistical Office. We have a very strong institutions in providing, collecting and analyzing labor market data, but also at ILO as well as World Bank and IMF. Now, the good news here is that we have a very responsive labor force that as soon as opportunities open up, they occupy the space and they take these opportunities. And this is not just a statement, but it's based on facts on the previous episodes of relatively high growth eras in Iranian economy, where the labor force have been shown to be not only highly educated, but creative with entrepreneurial spirit, taking up and occupying the space that is opening up. If I now turn to Iran and ILO, Iran is a founding member of the ILO, has been an active member since, and including the last 4 decades, there has been continued dialogue and engagement with ups and downs. The nature of this dialogue and engagement between Iran and the ILO also concerns the performance or the compliance with ILO standards, in particular standards that have been ratified by ILO. Iran has ratified 6 out of 10 fundamental standards. What we call fundamental standards are those standards that cover issues of equality, non-discrimination, 5 areas: elimination of child labor, elimination of forced labor, promoting and guaranteeing freedom of association, and occupational safety and health. What is important to realize that Iran has ratified actually 2 of these fundamental standards on child labor and on occupational safety and health after year 2000, and occupational safety health as late as 2023. So this is just to show that there is an active engagement and building on the social infrastructure and labor standards in Iran. Now, the committee and the ILO supervisory mechanism have raised several issues over the years in the last 2 decades regarding 2 main areas of contentious issues with limited compliance. One of these issues is freedom of association. And the second area of limited compliance or non-compliance is equality and non-discrimination. I will discuss these two elements further in detail, but let me also mention that Iran, has ratified ILO Convention on Employment Policy, but it has been all the time notified that it is not really developing, and it's a convention that is under use. The Employment Policy Convention obligates a state that has ratified it to promote, in consultation with most representative institutions, through social dialogue, an active employment policy which caters for macroeconomic frameworks, pro-employment macroeconomic frameworks, sectoral industry development, as well as institutions of governance of labor markets. Now, there are issues in the current labor law of Iran, as well as several of family protection laws. The conjunction of these different legislative pieces that contradict sometimes each other, but are not aligned with the comprehensive promotion of equality and combating non-discrimination on the basis of sex, creed, opinion, national origin, and social ethnic origin. Repeatedly, I will spare you the details for the sake of time, but there are explicit provisions that have been highlighted by ILO, by the expert group committee and the supervisory body, that are in contradiction and need to be repealed. The second issue that has been under the same convention raised is also combating discrimination against minority religious groups as well as ethnic groups. And finally, there is an issue also with the promoting non-discrimination around non-nationals. As you know, Iran is hosting many millions of Afghan nationals who are also very present in the labor market. So, as a matter of fact, not only ILO has asked Iran to repeal those contravening provisions, but also to prepare a comprehensive legislation eliminating discrimination in employment and training on all grounds, and has also urged the government to have more comprehensive legislation on all forms of harassment against men and women workers. The second convention that that Iran has ratified, it deals with equal remuneration convention, which is equality of pay for work of equal value between men and women. And there too, the ILO has noted specific provisions in the labor code, but also I want to insist in the regulations that are governing the free trade industrial zones for a very narrow definition of equality of pay. I don't want to get into the technicalities, but on these two grounds, the dialogue with the government of Iran is that government repeatedly has been responding its intent to align. Now, a major other contentious issue is freedom of association. And I would like to remind those participants who are not very familiar with the ILO that ILO is not just an interstate, but it's a tripartite international institutions, and workers and employers organization attend at par on the same level in all decisions taken at par with the governments. So Iran has not ratified any of the two fundamental standards that relate to freedom of association, although it has expressed its intent to ratify one of the conventions, and it's preparing the ground. So there has been a long dialogue between Iran and ILO on how to align the freedom of association, the provisions in labor law, which govern the creation and establishment and functioning of trade unions and of employers' associations at par with the fundamental conventions in this regard. And for now, this is one of the most difficult conversations that there are, because the convention recognizes the rights of all workers to establish and join organizations of their own choosing, while in the Iranian labor law, there are only three types of organizations that have been accepted, framed in the law, and with a preference given to Islamic labor councils. This is not also accepted as full compliance with these conventions, including by International Trade Union Congress. There have been also repeatedly complaints by workers and employers organizations, Iranian workers and employers organization, of government interference in union elections and in their functioning, which is again against the conventions. And there is also the issue repeatedly and currently trade union. I really want I am going to conclude for the sake of time just by going through where I think we need to build a strong social contract embedding in the discussions in rebuilding Iran. First of all, I would like to insist on the stabilization of macroeconomic policies. Second, there is a need and opportunity for comprehensive industrial policy in various sectors. However, without an employment impact assessment, investment alone will not create the conditions for job creation. I can elaborate on this, and I really want to say that as part of the basic infrastructure that needs to be upgraded is level playing field for private sector actors of all sizes in Iran itself, and equality of opportunity and treatment in law and practice, freedom of association, rule of law that we have called. But I would like also to mention, since we are at the Silicon Valley, and to the need for policy framework that ensure AI enhances job quality and not exacerbate inequality. And last word, I haven't heard very much. Of course, I have only followed the mainstream sessions about environmental just transition, about transition from informal to formal economy as part of the reconstruction, as well as being very the issues of due diligence and in by FTI and in global supply chains. I know that I have come up at the end of the time allocated by me, but I will be happy to participate in the question and answer discussion.